Autumn is out this week. Tim Andrews will be joining me on the show. When we connected and started recording, we just went into a conversation. There's no official intro, so I'll do that now. Welcome to One Topic, where we kind of don't really stick to one topic. It's a loosely tied together collection of topics that hopefully has an underlying theme. My name is Greg Russ. Like I said, Tim Andrews on the show with me this week, and we will pick up already in progress.
Tired. I woke up at 6:30 and I stayed up late thinking I was going to sleep in, and it just doesn't happen.
I had 2 nights ago, every time I would get to the moment where I was about to cross over into sleep, my brain would become conscious of it and jerk me awake.
That happens to me all the time. I hate that.
But like the hypnic jerk that people talk about, to me, that used to be something that would happen like here and there. But the other night, it happened probably 15 times in a row. Every time I got to that moment, and I just had to say, fuck this, I'm going to get up. And then I read Reddit for a few hours, which probably doesn't help your quality of sleep.
Did it get you mad? Were you doom scrolling on Reddit?
No, I can't remember what I was looking at. It was pretty lighthearted. I didn't go deep, but still in general. Just, I was thinking about the amount of trust I put into it's stupid because I know that people who post on Reddit, for the most part, are idiots or they're trolls or they're trying to just cause problems, which I guess is the definition of a troll.
Yeah.
But I read it and I find myself putting more weight into the comments than I should.
Oh, everybody does that, don't they? I mean, if you're a rational thinker and you don't really care either way about something, or even if you care, but you're not going to take the time to write about it, you read something and you just can't imagine how stupid somebody could be to take the time to write something like they just wrote. I read through these comments and I'm like, should I respond? I don't want to respond. I just deleted my longtime Reddit, what do you call it? Profile, whatever. Because I went back and looked through it, and there were so many negative comments that I'd made about things and fighting with people that I just decided, I'm just going to delete this. So now I have one where I don't have any politics or anything in it, and I don't fight with people. And then I have another one for trolling and other things.
I was going to ask, you got rid of this one account, but you probably had others, right?
Yes.
So I already answered.
Yes, I have I'll tell you what it is. It's Redbox Troll, REDDBOXX Troll. And that is me, and I don't care if people see it, but then I have another one I would hate for anybody to see because of the groups I follow or the subreddits I follow and look at. I don't want anybody to know.
I'm with you on that. I'm not going to ever tell anyone my screen name. And it's not because there's anything that I've posted that could get me, I guess, in trouble, but most people don't need to read my in-depth analysis of Love is Blind, like an episode or the finale. I don't know why I go and you know that show on Netflix. Have you at least heard of it?
I've heard of it, yeah, but I've never watched it.
I got into it. I am somewhat embarrassed to admit, but I got into that show and I've watched every season of it. And then I'll go into the subreddit and leave my analysis or thoughts on. But one of the things that bothers me is immediately normal dynamics of a relationship. Sure, reality TV exaggerates those, and especially the show's got booze, so things get blown out of proportion. And then you've got editing on top of it. But sometimes there are just normal things that happen in relationships. And if you go online and the way that people write about it, it's like that person is toxic, huge red flags, a million red flags.
Mm-hmm.
How the fuck are people supposed to act these days?
Yeah, and what does that even mean? To be honest, what does it mean?
It's this pop psychology that you know that I've been a proponent of mental health. I went to therapy for years. I wasn't a person who felt embarrassed by it, so I would talk about it because I thought it was helpful and important for some people. Right. But we've gotten to the point where these therapists jump on TikTok and they become celebrities on social media. And they spew out just a lot of the times it's not even in context because they only have a few seconds to do it. They take a minute and a half to do it. But people hear things like gaslighting or, just toxic behavior and they fucking grasp it and they run with it. And suddenly everything in the world is that.
Yeah. Yeah. I went through years of therapy, going back to I was about 19 or 20 when I first started feeling or acknowledging, understanding what anxiety was. Because I had anxiety when I was a kid and I didn't know what it was. I just thought I was scared and I wouldn't be able to sleep, or I would set these arbitrary rules on I have to be asleep by 8 or I'm not going to be able to get any sleep. Just weird stuff when I was a kid. And that comes from, years of being dragged all over the place. I mean, it's a real long, who knows what really causes it all. But, and then I stopped going, and then I moved here to Atlanta, and in the late 90s, early 2000s, I saw a therapist, and then I saw another one. And then I finally met one that I really liked. And it really boiled down to, okay, he's going to give me some guidance, and he's going to let me figure it out myself, and it's all going to be about talking. And so I was paying a person to go sit and talk to them and learning how to cope with things. And through those sessions and over those years, I put together in my head, you really, now that you know that you're in control of all of this stuff, it's up to you to put the mechanisms in place to prevent it from happening. Otherwise, you can just say, I'm just going to let myself be anxious or have whatever. And I only bring it up, and I feel like I'm derailing now, so I hope I'm not. But the other night, do you know Harlan Williams, the comedian?
Yeah.
And then he's an actor too. He has a podcast called The Harlan Highway, and usually there's other comedians or guests, but sometimes he does calls, and people can call up. And one guy called and asked him for advice. He goes, I'm starting to get anxiety a lot, and I just wondered how you handled it. Now, to your point of these pop psychologists who will go on social media and just do, oh, this is what you need to do, and blah, 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 blah. Harlan goes, you're not going to like what I have to say. And he went through this diatribe of, think of your ancestors who fought in World War II. Now think of their ancestors who came over here on a boat from another country with nothing in their pockets. Do you think they were waylaid by anxiety? Do you think that they were worried about what was going on in another country, or were they looking at the newspaper and freaking out about stupid, meaningless things? No, if they had an obstacle in their way, they moved the obstacle. So he goes, you got to look at everything in your path and live your life so as you don't get dragged down by things. And that's a good way to be. It's just hard to do because we live in an era of comfort and somebody will take care of us, if that makes sense, what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think the answer lives somewhere in the middle of that. I agree with that, having perspective, thinking about what other people have dealt with and what they would do when they came across those hurdles and barriers. I do agree with that. I think also it is fair. We live in an era of comfort, as you said. Things are subjective, and our issues today, we should be so lucky that they aren't these major issues, at least not yet.
Right.
I don't know how much hope I hold out for the future, but it's a fair thing to get at least stuck, not permanently stuck, but at least like quicksand. Well, I guess quicksand's a bad example because you can actually get completely stuck in that and get pulled under.
Or not. That's not true. You know that, right? All that quicksand in the movie. No, it's not. It's nothing like in the movies. When I was a little kid, I thought, oh, the quicksand, I don't want to get stuck in that. I'll never get out. And then I stepped in quicksand and I got out of it.
Well, I think there's different types of quicksand.
Okay, maybe.
What I was looking at recently maybe wasn't even quicksand. It was some kind of boggy, marshy land. But this one guy on TikTok, now we really are derailed from what I was saying, but he went through it and got to the point where he almost got sucked under.
Oh, okay.
And he was pretty scared after the fact.
That's what kills you, the fear. See? You got to get the obstacle out of your way.
Anyway, whatever I was saying was I think it's fair in our world to have issues that maybe in the past wouldn't have been perceived as issues, but keeping things in perspective is important, and figuring your way through is important. I do agree that just saying I have anxiety, that's my identity, it's who I am, and I'm really I tried to lean into my anxiety in my early 20s because that was, I didn't know at the time, a way I was working through it. Or I thought, if I'm anxious, then I'm just going to put it out to the world, and I'll even exaggerate it.
Yeah.
But that was stupid. That didn't work. Having it as a personality trait is a dumb thing.
Well, any identifier as a personal trait, or that being who you are, or identifying yourself as something like that, is a waste of time. And I can't imagine it leading to anything but madness.
Well, it's a big thing these days.
Oh, I know.
Any everyone is neurodivergent, which at some point, if everyone is neurodivergent, nobody is neurodivergent. But it's a badge of honor. And I get when I first started therapy, one of the things my therapist said was, I'm not giving you a label. I went in, I didn't ask for one directly, but I realized I was looking for something to just explain the way I was and maybe even use it as an excuse and maybe even take it and say, this is who I am. This diagnosis is who I am. It's not my fault and I can't control these things. And maybe I'm even somewhat proud of it. But I was really, at the time, maybe I was a little annoyed. But when it was all said and done, I was happy that she didn't just throw a label at me. And she told me that most people, that's what they want. And probably for the reasons I just stated.
Yeah.
And I don't think that is a good way to go forward, but it does seem to be where we are in society. A lot of people want that label and then they make it their identity.
Yeah, they want the label. And then you can medicate it, I guess. But I found that medicating it does nothing to fix the problem because everything boils down to behavior. Everything boils down to behavior. You can have a debt that you owe, and they're calling you every day wanting the money. And maybe you have enough to set up a payment plan. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have the money to pay it. Maybe you don't. But there's always an option. Letting them call you every day and ignoring them just causes you anxiety. So the way to get around that anxiety is to just call them up and hey, I can pay you $20 a month. Here's my debit card. Get going. And then they're never going to call you again. That's one obstacle out of your way. But people, it's sometimes that is a difficult thing for people to do.
I think people also want solutions. If you're not going to go to a therapist or just in general, if you can't figure out a way to fix things, then people just abandon it. But you're not really going, like, I am who I am, and there's certain behaviors that are going to always exist with me.
Yeah.
And the key was figuring out how to just move through those things a little more quickly and not get bogged down in them and don't let them dominate my mind and my thinking and spill out and ruin my relationships. And it's still difficult sometimes, but I don't know why it was hard for me to even grasp that, because for the longest time, it's like, I act like this. I don't want to act like this.
Right.
And I had to come to terms with the fact, like, well, you probably are going to continue to act like that. It doesn't need to be so extreme or so psychotic.
Well, your brain will think immediately to react the way it always has, because that's what your brain does. Your brain goes, no, I've always done this. But you have to be able to put up a barrier. For years, and this is really simple, and I'm going to condense it as much as possible. I had a terrible relationship with my mother. There was fighting, making up, yelling, screaming, and it was weird. It was not a normal relationship. And she raised me, I went to my dad's on the weekends, but she was a single mother. So that's the way, that's my benchmark for having a relationship with women. And pretty much every relationship I've had, save a couple, have been in that same, the same type of thing, I guess. And it wasn't until this therapist that I was talking about that I learned that, okay, well, you have to know that that's what you do and that's where your brain is. And the only way you can not do that is to recognize that it's bad behavior. And you have to find ways of dealing with it and how to confront it. And, it's no different now. I've been married since 2017. We've been together since 2015. So almost, we've been over 9 years now. I still have those traits, this has got to end, but I'm too much of a chicken and I don't want it to end, let me be clear. But I think you and I have talked about this before, and maybe we have similar traits, is I don't want to have the responsibility of ending this, so I'm just going to be a piece of shit until they end it. Because that absolves me of the guilt. And then, even though I don't want to be in the relationship and I push them away and force them to break up with me, once they do, I'm mad at them for doing that.
Yeah, there's no winning for these people. You
No.
really put them in a tough spot. And by you, I mean, I did the same thing. Now, I didn't get overly shitty. When you say you got shitty, I did kind of just wait for the person to break up with me. And my move was, secretly, slowly taking steps backwards. So it wasn't so noticeable in the moment, but if you looked at the bigger picture, you would say, oh, wow, this person is like really not even around anymore.
That's difficult to do when you live with them.
Well, yes, I never lived with anyone.
Yeah.
I live with Christina now, and this is the first person I've ever lived with in a romantic relationship. In general, I hated having roommates, just non-romantic roommates. Living alone was amazing.
Oh yeah, living
I
alone was fantastic.
I loved it. Like living in New York and the amount of money I could have saved by having roommates, and when I would talk to people, and I don't know how the fuck I made it for so many years here because I was making, I don't know, $50,000 a year, but I lucked out in finding cheap rent. It was $1,200 a month to live alone in Greenwich Village in a shithole studio. But when you're single and it's you and you're in the place you want to be, at least you're close to the place you want to be. Like I wanted to be in New York, I guess, where I wanted to be in my life. It was still adjacent.
Yeah.
And the truth is, at that time, I didn't know what the fuck I wanted anyway. I was not like I was freelancing and not really freelancing, making just enough money to survive, but then spending money on pills and shit like that. So whatever. That aside, uh, living alone, maybe it led to those bad habits too. It probably did compound a lot of the issues I had, but I fucking loved it. I really really liked it.
I liked living
Moving.
alone. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you can bring up what you're going to bring up about living alone because I was going to go back
Well,
to relationships. So
yeah, when I lived alone, it was between 2010 and 2015 when Caitlin and I moved in together. But I liked just having that freedom because I'd had roommates for so long. Just having that freedom to do whatever I wanted to do, which oftentimes was nothing but watch television. But after a while, I slowly started to go nuts. I stopped doing anything. I wouldn't go anywhere. I just retreated to my house, and it affected my day. I would just smoke weed all day, like wake up in the morning, get high, or get home from work at 11 and then get stoned until I went to bed. So this is all I was doing, watching TV, getting high, eating, playing with my cat. And I could feel that the anxiety building because of that, and it was weird. And I was like, I gotta find something. I don't know. But had I not met Caitlin, had I not moved in with her, had I not gotten married or whatever, I would probably still be alone today. And weird, I don't know. I just don't know.
the more we talk about this, I still loved living alone, but I realized that maybe it wasn't the best thing because, as you just said, I didn't ever find myself feeling lonely. That's not something for whatever reason really affected me. Maybe at some point in life, if I just continued to live alone and got really old.
Yeah.
But I had friends, so there were people in my life. I think I would feel lonely if I didn't have people in my life. Living alone in itself and isolating didn't make me feel lonely. So that wasn't really a motivator to make any change. And it did allow me to just kind of swim in my bad habits.
Yes.
So maybe it wasn't the greatest thing. I still really did like it. Living with Christina now, I think it's going really well. I think one of the problems is being open up front about who I am and going back to the way I would leave relationships, kind of just detach and let them slowly die. I think that lives in her brain somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And and not to say that there aren't still habits of mine that exist, because like we already said, they are going to still exist. There are parts of me that are just going to be who I am, and I need to be mindful of them. And sometimes maybe I lean back into them, and even though I'm living with a person, I'm not engaging as much as I want to be,
Well,
because it is just easy to go say I'm going to spend an hour alone in the room. I'll be back, and then like 4 hours goes by.
right. I found now you talk to Autumn quite a bit. She's a mother, and her kids are of age where they're their own people now. But I've one thing among many, but the one thing I learned about having Gilbert and being a father, and him now being 3 years old and having a brain and putting things together, is that you have a clean slate for the only time in your life when you have a child to develop a relationship with somebody. And you can either be a stern, distant parent, or I think maybe I don't know. My personality is I want to be fair, and I'm not disciplinarian, and I feel weird yelling at him. But my point is that it's a clean slate, and I can put as much of myself onto him or into him as I can, or I can step back and let him become his own person. It's It's a side note to what we're talking about, but it's one of those rare things that I've noticed in my life where I don't have to be anybody but myself, and I can wait and allow him to become himself. And in the meantime, we can just kind of gel together. And it's cool now because he remembers things that I've said, or he'll bring things up, and uh, I just enjoy that. I enjoy that a lot. I never would have had that if I had stayed living alone.
Do you feel stressed?
I
That's a
did.
dumb question.
Go ahead.
In general, I'm sure it's a very stressful thing to have a kid. But do you ever feel worried that you saying it's a clean slate, but being who you are, do you ever feel as though you're going to fuck up to the point where those bad habits spill out? Gil sees them, and it influences his development and sends him on a bad path or something.
No, I know what you're saying, and no, not now. I did, and when he was younger, I got stressed out all the time from the crying and being tired, and you know the no, and I don't want to do that and stuff like that. But now I don't, and even if I feel it, I just realize that I can't react. I can't throw a temper tantrum because I have in front of him. I'm like, just my typical, fucking juvenile brain. And I look at him and he's looking at me like I'm some sort of monster or some crazed lunatic. And I remember seeing that look on my mother's face and just that, where is this lunatic idiot coming from? Why is she so enraged over nothing? And I realized I was doing that, and I didn't ever want him to see that again. So yeah, I get frustrated. Yeah, I get mad. I'm sure every parent has. It's not unique to any one person. But I don't allow him to see that because no one needs to see that, your parents shouldn't, dump all their shit on you or take things out on you. And I never, he's tough, but all kids are tough. And he throws temper tantrums. And I look at him, and because I have such a good memory, I'm like, this is me. I did all these things. I still do these things. If I lose my keys, or why can't I have what I want? And
I was going to say,
go ahead.
When he's throwing a fit, I like this idea of you throwing a fit in the same way that he's throwing a fit, and then getting frustrated. It's like, hey, I'm just playing at your level.
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me like that, Gil? I'm just doing what you're doing, and you can't comprehend the fact that I'm doing what you're doing. I've never been able. Logically, I know that kids' brains aren't developed, and I know that they can't express themselves, and their feelings and emotions are overwhelming, and they don't know what to do with them, and that's why fits happen. I get all that. But when I'm encountering it, I just think you're a little shit. You're like, to me, it's an adult who's just small acting like a little shit.
Yeah.
Maybe that changes when it's your own kid. I'm not saying that it's easy, but maybe does it shift at all?
It does. You have to make it shift or it won't work. I realized who I am, and I realize how my brain works. Olivia to say something to me, I don't like it when you do that. Don't talk to me like that. You're not allowed to talk to me. He says these things, and I'm sure he's picking them up at school, and it's mine, and it's mine. And, some parents, I'm sure, would take offense to it or actually think that this 3-year-old is literally saying that they don't like you. Now, why don't they like you? Well, they don't know any better. They can't differentiate between, well, this is my parent who I love, and this is the person who's taking away the thing that I want right now. Mm-hmm. So you have to be smart enough to tell yourself, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's how I've approached it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That's mine, and I want this, and I'm going to take it to bed with me, and you can't no, and I don't want to, and I'm not doing this. Or like getting frustrated about, we've been trying to get him to use the potty to take a dump, and it's just nothing works. And he just, no, I don't want to. And now a week ago, I started bribing him with toys. And for 3 successful times, he's run into the bathroom without being prompted. And he comes back and goes, I pooped. And then you go in there and this thing looks like a baseball bat. I don't know where the hell it comes from. I don't. I'm like, I wish I had a colon that healthy.
I don't understand, as much as maybe kids aren't able to grasp these things. I don't understand why pooping in the toilet wouldn't be a thing they would want to do. preferring to sit in their own shit, going in their pants and just having it there. Now, again, I'm applying adult
I know
rationalization to
it's
this.
control. It's this is what people have told me. They've said, and I'll touch on Reddit for a second because I'm going to get back to that. But people have told me that I've asked is that it's the only thing they can control. They know you. They know that their parents want them to do it, and so they can. It's one thing they can say, no, I don't. I'm not going to do that. You can't make me do that. Well, now you
See,
go ahead.
well, I was going to say, then I would say, good, enjoy sitting in your own shit.
No, you take their pants off and you make them run around the house naked. So they know that if they shit somewhere, it's going to be on the floor or on a couch or something, and then they're aware of it. But yesterday I was told that he, because that's what you do, I guess. It's not, I never thought I would send pictures of poop to people, but my wife sent me a picture. She goes, he did it. I'm like, awesome. You know, I put the little heart on the picture of the poop and then delete it because I don't want poop on my phone. But when I was a couple years ago, like after he was a couple months old, I said, there's a lot of parents on Reddit. So I went to a Reddit subreddit for new parents, and I quickly realized that all of these people were 20 years younger than me. And the way they talk about everything and psychological gobbledygook and the neuro, all that stuff you were talking about. And then and they're talking about their kids, and then they're talking about kids who are a year old and worrying about their gender and shit. And I'm like, I am not coming back to this subreddit. I'm going to find people my age or older to talk to.
Or you're already an old dad.
Yeah. Or find,
right.
like I would talk to Autumn for parenting advice because, it might have been difficult for her the first one, but when Pete came along, she's experienced. She knows what she's doing. And I have friends who have kids and cousins and stuff who have kids. And my brother has, 2 daughters and a son. Now, his son is younger than Gilbert, but his daughters are older. And you just learn things. But that subreddit was just a nightmare. It was a minefield of young millennial speak. You're older millennial, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm a geriatric millennial, technically.
Yeah, but the whole, they overthink everything. It's just nonsense. It's weird. It really.
But they don't realize that they're overthinking it.
Right.
I guess people on some levels have always used their kids as an extension of themselves. Their kids can fill in holes that they feel they had in their lives. I guess one of the common ways it played out with dads and their sons was the dad forcing the kid to play baseball when the kid didn't want to play baseball because the dad has dreams of the kid being in the major leagues.
I don't have that luxury, so.
It feels like gender
has
because for whatever reason, if you have a kid who is non-binary or is transgender, that is some kind of badge of pride.
It is. It is. So all that, don't you think so? Don't you think that it's
weird.
Yeah. I have done the thing that other people have done, and this, I am so proud of this and this. And it bothers me when I see people my age, people that I grew up with or people on Facebook, they're, my child graduated from high school. I'm so proud of their journey and stuff. Well, how are their grades? Oh, I don't care about that. This is who they did this a year ago. And I don't want to get into it because I want to piss people off. But you know what I'm talking about. It's like you didn't really have to do anything but buy new clothes.
I would let my kid, whoever the kid grew to be, I would be accepting of that. But if they were 3 and they started saying that they were a certain way or felt something, I wouldn't tell them no. I wouldn't make them feel bad or shame them, but I also would just say, okay.
Yeah.
And I would just let these things play out.
That's how you got to do it. That's what, exactly.
I wouldn't grasp it like a football and run with it. Okay, thank you for handing me the ball. We're going to the end zone now. I'm leading you. We're going to start your hormone treatment now at 4.
No 3-year-old knows anything about what they want or anything like that. I said to him the other day, what did I say? I just said something about, hey, you're a boy or something. Oh, he asked me why I stand to pee. And because he was sitting down and I was standing, and other than that, he was just amazed by the bubbles that it makes when it hits the water. He goes, look, bubbles. I go, you could do that. No. And he sits back down. And he goes, why do you stand up? And I said, well, boys can stand up to pee. I didn't say boys do. I said boys can stand up to pee. And I said, you could stand up to pee. He goes, I'm not a boy. And I go, yeah, you're a boy. And he went, I'm a boy. But I didn't immediately run out and get him a dress. Or start, oh God, Caitlin, he said he's a girl. Because we're older, so we're not we're not caught up in that trend. I think it's a social trend. I think it's for clout and things like that, and the
It
parents
is.
messing with their kids.
It certainly feels like it's for clout. I don't I that's when I look at it from a distance, which is all I can do because I don't have a kid, it just feels like it's the same thing they apply to themselves that we've already talked about, where I'm neurodivergent. I have this affliction. I have this mental disorder. Uh, if I didn't have it, I don't know who I would be, because then I'd just be a normal person.
Yeah.
If if I'm a normal person, then what makes me special? We've all wanted to find ways to set ourselves apart. Throughout history, there's been different ways to set yourself apart. And it really does feel like at this point that this is the way to do it. Finding what's wrong with you, your sexuality, your gender. This is all your identity. Politics is your identity now. It feels like it's unstable ground to talk about, because people will automatically, like, my fear is take what I'm saying and label me as, someone who's against people being who they are. I'm not. I'm fine with people being who they are. I feel like some of it's forced, though, and some of it is fake.
Yeah.
And that's the part that bothers me about it.
I don't necessarily, I get what you're saying. I don't think people are being who they are. I think they're being who they're told to be or encouraged to be. Or they're seeing someone else and, like, oh, that guy looks cool. Picture yourself in 1985. That guy looks cool wearing a Motley Crue shirt and he likes Motley Crue. I like Motley Crue. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do that with my hair. And then because I like Judas Priest, I'm going to wear a leather wristband with studs on it. There's always social trends. And we live in an era of overwhelming comfort and ease, even though things are expensive and this and that. We still live in an era of everything we want, we can get right away if we want it. Television, media, music, books, everything like that. You can't go get a car without money, but you know what I'm talking about. Instant gratification. If you take away the instant gratification, there's going to be an entire generation of people who do not know what to do with themselves. We will know what to do with ourselves after a week because, oh yeah, we lived this way before. I had to pick up a phone and physically dial it. I had to pick up a record, take it out of the sleeve and put it on a record player. I had to wait for things. I had to wait a week for the next episode of the TV show, and I had to sit through commercials. So we understand that. There's a generation, almost 2 generations of people that don't understand that. And if you took that all away, they would go mental for a very long time and wouldn't know how to handle it. We would. It would take.
I feel like on some level, I long for it. Now, I'm happy that I can get things pretty quickly. I do find myself when I want something going on Amazon, let's say, and it said it's going to take 2 days to arrive instead of 1. I think, fuck that.
Yep.
I'm going to go look for the thing that can make it tomorrow.
Right. But it's on principle. It's like I could wait 2 days, but fuck it. I'm paying Prime. I want it tomorrow.
Yeah. But in general, there are aspects to living in a more analog world, at least a less connected world, that I find myself longing for. I had, my life when I was born, the internet came around. I was on the internet in middle school, and I was the first in my family to do it when it was dial-up, and still at that point, I was blown away by being able to just go on and talk to people and search for things like boobs, and then a picture would slowly load line by line, and then I'd hear the garage door open and I have to quickly get off the computer, and I didn't know anything about browsing history, and thank God my parents knew less than I did.
Right.
But there was a world that wasn't so connected. So even those early internet days, like, it was slow and it existed in that room. It didn't follow me out of that room where the computer was. And I think of even flip phones, when cell phones, I guess, came about. I like the idea of leaving my house, people not being able to get a hold of me, and not worrying that they can't get a hold of me, not thinking there's something wrong because now you're expected to respond. If you don't respond, then did something happen to them? Are they angry? Like, people go down these rabbit holes.
That's unnecessary anxiety that people are putting on each other when they send a text. That's why I have my thing shut off. Like, I don't want to know if they read it, and I don't want them to know whether I've read theirs. You know what I mean? Again, we didn't grow up that way, and it's unnecessary pressure. Oh, they didn't respond right away. I hope they're okay. What did I say wrong? Nothing. You texted something. No one can infer anything from that.
Wouldn't it be great to just be able to leave the house and somebody calls, they didn't answer, I'll leave a message on the machine and they'll call me back at some point.
When I
It just
first
feels
Go
it
ahead.
feels like there's an escape that
Yeah.
I feel is hard to achieve these days. Even if it's just going down the street to the bar. I'm just going to go to the bar, I'm going to sit there and I'll read a book or I'll talk to someone at the bar and have a couple of drinks. And nobody can find me. They don't know I'm here, and that's okay.
Yes. And
The anxiety carries over now to me. Like if I feel anxious if at the thought of someone trying to reach me, like let's say I were to leave my phone at home to do that,
right.
because sure, I could do that. I guess that still exists in a way, but I would feel anxious not being reachable. And that I think I resent on some level.
Yeah, I resent it as well because when my first real job in Atlanta, they gave me a pager, and I had never had a pager before. And when they wanted to reach me, if I was out doing something, it would go off and it would beep, and my first instinct was to want to throw it out the window of the car because why can't you just wait until I get back? What's so goddamn important? It never was important, by the way, because I worked at a TV production company. Hey, on your way back to the office, can you stop at Office Depot? Okay. I could have come back to the office and then run back out to Office Depot. You know what I mean? And it was bizarre. And then the cell phone comes in, and when we first get the cell phones, they're just cell phones. I had an Ericsson, and then we had those horrible Nextels where people could page you, and then like a walkie-talkie. We had those at 96 Rock. Those were some of my first cell phones. And I felt that those were intrusive. And then I finally got rid of the flip phone and got the iPhone, and, it was over. That was the end of it. Once everything is in your hand and you got social media, that's it. That's the end of it. And you can put it all down and never look at it again. And, I remember I could go all day and then come home and log into Netscape and read all my email, check a couple of things, and then I was done. That was it. That was the end of the internet for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't even know what I do. I don't even know what I do now. I'll spend hours on the phone, and then if you ask me right after, what did you just look at for those
You won't know.
couple hours? I have no clue.
No fucking clue. I watch podcasts. I watch hour-and-a-half long YouTube podcasts of comedians talking to each other. When it's over, I don't remember what they were talking about.
Uh-huh. It's too much.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times I think I'm using it as just, I'm staring at this. I'm not even really thinking about anything. My brain's not drifting. I'm kind of engaged with whatever I'm looking at, but also it's like my brain goes into a standby mode.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's not good. I do think I hide in it, not consciously. I don't make the choice, but it is an easy way to just like, I know I'm doing something. I'm reading this article.
Right.
We'll talk after that. And then
how was the article? I don't know.
Yeah, I have no clue. I can't tell you. And then it does come off as like, you don't want to have a conversation about this. It's like, what? I would, I guess.
I
just
did
don't
with
know
myself.
what to say. Yeah,
I already did with myself. How do you feel about this? I feel great. Thanks. I can't watch TV anymore because I watch so much on my phone. I've watched all of The Boys and all of House of the Dragon on my phone. Because while I'm watching it, it's like, okay, this is dialogue between some relationship bullshit. I can go look at 4chan while this is on. And, there's some dragons. Okay, I can make it bigger and watch the dragon fight. Okay, now there's more dialogue. All right, I'll just watch this. Look at something.
I still don't. What do you get out of 4chan? I ask that because you can't really search 4chan, right? It's like whatever the top threads are, those are the threads you get to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know what I get out of it. A habit. Go ahead, though. Ask the question.
Well, there were some sites that I know served as archives, but I feel like a lot of those shut down, or at least when it came to images, like the image hosting platform erased a lot of the stuff. But 4chan itself isn't searchable.
No, it's not searchable. Well, there are archives. They have archives. I don't know how far back they go. But 4chan is the last place really you can go and be uncensored and have people not find you, really. And so I like to read what they're saying, but it's really become a characterization of itself. It was cool I wouldn't say cool. It was interesting more so in the mid, let's see, when did I start going there? 2009, 2010. It was B, which was a board on there. It's the random board where you could post anything. And it was all trolling and making fun of Scientology and pranking people. And then it just became a dumping ground for porn. And so people created the politically incorrect board, which became an alt-right, right-wing board. But the humor on there makes me laugh. I really, honest to God, I don't know why I look at it. A habit. Because I don't really feel like you can get real news anywhere. But to be honest, X is really 4chan now because Elon Musk lets so much on there, more so than the old people that used to run Twitter did.
So the conversations you've enjoyed on 4chan, you can find on Twitter now, or at least the responses.
Some of them, yeah, yeah. It's just everything now political is you suck. No, you suck. You suck. No, you suck. You're a child molester. No, you're a child molester. No, you're a groomer. No, you're a groomer. You dated Fang Fang. She's a Chinese woman, so she's obviously a spy. It's insane, and I don't know why I bother. You know,
It's tiring.
it is, and sometimes it's just great to put the phone down and go play Matchbox Cars. And I get to do that now with a kid instead of by myself, which I wouldn't do. So
I can see the appeal to that.
yeah, it's
An
fun.
escape, the
Yeah.
real world, just a very simple task and something that is bringing you more joy than reading any of this shit does.
Yeah. Or watching the dumb shows that he likes to watch on YouTube. We don't let him watch anything with fire in it or crashes and stuff. And he'll go, "That's too violent. That's too violent." And so you just watch this dumb show with cars. They sing them. They're all made in Eastern Europe and Russia, and they've been stolen and overdubbed in English. There's things no one knows about. I'll bring them up to other people. Like, I never heard of that. Our kid likes Blue's Clues and Bluey and Blippy. And I
I
watched
hear Bluey's good. I hear Bluey is a
Bluey.
nice,
Yes,
emotionally deep show
it
for
is.
kids.
It's way better than Blue's Clues. I don't like any of those shows. Sesame Street now, and you should call this one 7,000 Topics, but Sesame Street now is terrible compared to the way it used to be. Because when Sesame Street came around, the show really had, it was super diverse, and the adults were the characters. The Muppets were there for humor for the kids, and Big Bird symbolized the kid. The Big Bird was the symbolization of the audience, the children watching, because he was so naive. And the evolution of Sesame Street, just like everything else, went from being let's educate kids and show them that the world is diverse and the country is diverse without even thinking about it. And now it's every neurological problem, every psychological problem. Eat healthy, do this. Cookie Monster is a vegan, I think. I don't know. And Elmo's just
Well, he at least eats vegetables, I think, now
yeah,
on
and
top of the cookies. The cookies are a sometime treat.
yeah, and Elmo is just ridiculous. It's just dumb. And my wife was like, a long time ago, my wife said, I don't think you should watch old Sesame Streets because it wasn't diverse enough. And I said, hang on a minute. And I put on the intro from 1971, and I go, tell me this isn't diverse. All the kids are black, Asian, and Hispanic.
Yeah. I mean, it was representative of New York.
Right.
It's a very diverse city. And just by having that shown to you, not shoved down your throat, not even calling attention to it, just showing it as a natural, normal thing, that does so much more, I think.
Yes,
than
and it was
having
normal to
yourself.
see. Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I'm getting all excited.
You know, I guess these shows, I get that there are a lot of different types of people, and I couldn't imagine dealing with some sort of disability as a kid and how alienating it could be, because being a kid in itself is tough. Like,
Right.
people called me weird in first grade for the first time, and I thought, why? What am I doing? That's so weird. And then like that really sticks with you. And I didn't have a tough childhood at all. So I get wanting to show that that's not a bad thing if, like, you're, say, in a wheelchair.
Right.
on Sesame Street. But the list is endless.
Well,
It's
no,
just
they hid those kids
impossible.
from us. They hid those kids from us in the 70s and early 80s.
Yes, those. Yes, I'm not saying that Sesame Street went that far. I'm saying these days,
Yeah.
when I get the idea of wanting to show every type of person, but
My
it's
mommy's a
impossible.
junkie. Okay.
It's impossible to do.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. Didn't that happen on Sesame Street? Didn't Elmo's yellow friend
I don't know
have
that.
a?
Yeah, there's a yes. They had a character when they tried to bring back the Muppet Show in the 90s or whatever. They had a character with AIDS. It's not necessary. Kids can learn about
No.
that stuff. But
Yeah, I think.
that's the guy's identity. I got HIV. I'm a Muppet. Okay. I gotta wrap up pretty soon. I hope it's not too short. But
No, no, no. I know you have to go.
I wanted to say that you live in New York and I grew up in Pennsylvania, which is in the DMA. People don't know what that is, but we had Channel 11, which is WPIX. It's not independent anymore, but back in the 70s and 80s, WPIX, I would get up early in the morning to go to school, and they had a show on called Carrascolendas. It was for the Puerto Rican kids in New York City, sort of a Sesame Street. It was in Spanish, but I still watched it because it was interesting. And then there was a show called Vegetable Soup, which was produced out of New York, I believe. And Bette Midler was the singing and talking spoon. You'd have to find it on YouTube. She was on it. This is the early 70s the show was made. All these shows, just by net, I can't even think of the word, but just like you were saying a few minutes ago, is that the diversity and the society that New York was in, with a bunch of different cultures living there, was portrayed on these shows, and it was just normal. Again, it wasn't shoved down your throats. And I remember, Bette Midler singing as this talking spoon Woody how to make plantains in the mid 70s, and I wanted to eat plantains, and I asked my mom, "Will you get some plantains?" She goes, "What are you talking about? What's a plantain?" I said, "It looks like a banana," and she goes, "I'll get you some bananas." I said, "I want a banana." That was it.
Could she even find plantains?
No, you wouldn't have been able to find plantains at the Super Duper in 1978. No. But then also, when you'd watch WPIX News at night, we're looking for the Son of Sam killer. So, it was very New York centric because that was the station we got. And then we got WOR. And, that's the way it was growing up. You live in a small town, but there's the only black people in your town are from Africa, and they work at the university. That's what my town was like. And it was weird. I mean, that is weird compared to now.
I mean, when I first moved to New York, and again, I'll keep this quick because I know you have to jump. You have an interview coming up. Who are you interviewing?
Rudy Sarzo, who was one of the founding members of Quiet Riot. He's with them again. He's played with Ozzy. He was in Black Sabbath. He was friends with Randy Rhoads. There's a lot. It's not as easy as Monday when I interviewed Kevin Kinney and we talked for an hour and a half and I didn't even write notes. I just turned on the mic.
When's that going to air?
That's on Saturday night on the Popcast. That'll be out as a podcast afterwards.
Okay. I was going to say, just talking about diversity. When I first moved to New York, I like to think I lived in Atlanta. I am used to diversity. I come across different types of people, but no, in Atlanta, especially when you're not interacting and mixing with people on the street because you're not walking places, you're not taking public transit, you're still in your car and you're tending, like I lived in Atlanta in the gentrifying hipster neighborhoods. So I saw people like me, and I like to think I had an open mind, and I'm not saying I didn't at the time, but moving to New York, once you are actually in the middle of so many different types of people, you find yourself like thinking, things start to pop up. Let's say I was on a subway car at night alone and a black guy got on, and I would realize it's like there was something in me. It's like, oh no, it's just the two of us. And but then I'd never been faced with questioning it like that. It's like, why am I feeling like that? That's just a dude who got on the train.
Right.
And it wasn't until I really mixed with a bunch of different type of people that I was able to realize that there were still prejudices that lived inside of me. I'm not saying I'm racist, but there are things.
But you were conditioned, and that's an entire hour conversation to talk about. You go back again. You were conditioned. When I was a little kid and I was watching TV, not all black people were portrayed as criminals. It wasn't until the 80s when you were, I'm not kidding. Everything listen, some of the first heroes in sports of mine are African-American guys, okay? And you didn't even think you didn't think about it unless you had a relative who was racist, and I didn't.
Mhm.
So you didn't think about it, and then all of a sudden, rap, which came out, which was a lot of fun. You had LL Cool J, and Run DMC, and then all of a sudden that pivots to hardcore gangster rap, and then the gangster movies, and you got to be careful. You're conditioned all the time, and I think it's by choice, and I think it's done on purpose. That's again, I'm going to shut up because I sound
Yeah,
conspiratorial.
we can't get into that now because you have to go. But maybe Autumn will be out again, or we can just do a
But
show.
you know what I'm
back.
saying, right? I think we're conditioned to think that way when really we're just people. And when you get on the subway with that guy's probably going, "Oh shit, there's a white guy on here. What's he?" You know what I mean? That's exactly.
Or the black guy. I mean, yes, he probably gets on. He's like, "There's a white guy on here." Now he's thinking that I'm going to do something to him. That's what the black guy is thinking.
Right.
And
it's
that's got to be a
bullshit.
shitty. Yeah, it's a shitty place to be in.
Right.
I do believe that there's conditioning, and I think that some of the problems that are called out are real in society. But it's not as extreme, and not everyone's so racist. And
no, most people aren't.
It's very nuanced, and the approach to it is not that. And I think that is problematic and ultimately does more harm.
And I would just leave it with, I don't believe that there is massive racism that exists anymore. I think it's a catch-all word now that's used again to separate people. I think that there's plenty of prejudice and plenty of bigotry, but every culture has that, and prejudices are formed by experience, and bigotry is just like, well, okay, there's stereotypes, but racism is just in and of itself the dumbest thing. If you're a racist, you're a complete fool because I am this, which makes me better than that. You're a fucking moron. That's
yes.
Right. But you can't help bigotry and prejudice because it's inherent. It's just from learned experience. And Dave, I think.
All right, you show Gordon on Sesame Street as just a black guy in the neighborhood, and he's a normal guy, and you don't say, "Hey, look at us! Look how good of a job we're doing by showing a black man who's just a normal guy," because that introduces weird thoughts into kids' heads.
It's just this is a man, and this is his wife, and this is people, and that's it. And that's a bird, and that's a frog that talks, and that's Bert and Ernie, and they're gay. Maybe I don't know.
And that goes a long way of diffusing it. But anyway, okay. Thank you for doing the show with me this week.
Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Yeah, and don't worry, I'll somehow shoehorn this into one topic, like relationships. It was more than relationships, though. But the show has kind of gone off the rails. We don't really just focus on one thing anyway.
Okay.
So
how can you? It's a great idea, but eventually it's tough because you have a lot of thoughts and ideas. All right, I'm gonna save this and send it to you. Thanks for having me on. I'll do it anytime.